The morning sun painted Fifth Avenue in shades of gold and amber as Rosa Martinez adjusted the striped awning over her pastry cart. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, arranging croissants still warm from her brother's bakery oven, positioning delicate fruit tarts in perfect rows, and filling glass containers with cinnamon cookies that smelled like childhood memories. She had been at this corner for 3 years, every weekday from 7 until 2, rain or shine. Rosa wiped flour dust from her cheek and smiled at her first customer, an elderly woman who bought the same blueberry muffin every Tuesday. This was her kingdom, small but hers, built on early mornings and calloused hands. She knew the rhythm of this street, the faces that passed, the stories whispered between coffee sips and pastry selections. Vincent Morrison's driver had taken a wrong turn. That single navigation error would change everything, though Vincent didn't know it yet as he stepped out of his black sedan, phone pressed to his ear, discussing quarterly projections with someone in Singapore. He was supposed to be at a breakfast meeting 12 blocks north, but the detour had left him with 20 minutes to kill. His eyes found the pastry cart almost by accident. Something about the cheerful, striped awning felt out of place among the steel and glass towers, like a wildflower growing through concrete. Vincent ended his call mid-sentence and approached, drawn by curiosity and the rich aroma of fresh baking. Rosa looked up from counting change for a customer. The man walking toward her cart wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, Italian leather shoes that had never seen a subway platform, and the kind of watch that didn't tell time so much as announce status. She had seen his type before, usually rushing past her cart toward important meetings, too busy to notice the small pleasures of handmade food. Vincent stopped at the counter and studied the offerings with unexpected attention. Everything looked homemade, imperfect in the way that proved human hands had crafted each item. No industrial uniformity, no corporate branding, just honest food made with care. "The almond croissants are fresh from the oven," Rosa offered, her voice friendly but professional. "And the chocolate chip cookies are my personal favorite." Vincent met her eyes for the first time. Brown eyes, direct and warm, belonging to a woman with flour on her apron and confidence in her smile. She wasn't trying to impress him, wasn't adjusting her posture or voice the way people usually did when they sensed money. "I'll take both. Actually, how much for everything here?" Rosa's hands stilled on the pastry tongs. "Everything?" "Your entire inventory. I'll buy it all." A businesswoman in line behind Vincent shifted her briefcase impatiently. Rosa felt heat rising in her cheeks, unsure if this was a joke or some kind of elaborate prank. "That's not how this works," she said carefully. "I have customers all morning. I can't sell you everything." Vincent pulled out his wallet, the leather soft and expensive. "I'll pay double, triple, name your price." Something hardened in Rosa's expression. She had dealt with men like this before, men who thought everything had a price tag, that enough money could rearrange the world to their convenience. Her ex-fiancé, Gabriel, had been exactly that kind of man. "You want to know my price?" Rosa leaned forward slightly, her voice quiet but firm. "You can't afford it." Vincent blinked, genuinely confused. "I assure you I can afford—" "No," Rosa interrupted. "You can't. Because what you're trying to buy isn't for sale. These pastries are for the office worker who saves up for a Friday treat, for the student who needs something sweet before an exam, for the grandmother who walks 6 blocks because my cookies remind her of her childhood in Mexico. You can't buy that. You can't purchase meaning with a credit card." The businesswoman behind Vincent let out a low whistle. A delivery driver stopped to watch, grinning. Vincent stood frozen, his wallet still open, completely unprepared for this response. "I didn't mean to offend," he started, but Rosa was already moving, serving the next customer with deliberate attention. Vincent stepped aside, feeling unbalanced in a way that had nothing to do with the uneven sidewalk. He watched Rosa work, noticed how she remembered names, how she asked about someone's sick cat, how she slipped an extra cookie into a child's bag when the mother wasn't looking. This wasn't just commerce. This was community. When the small rush cleared, Rosa turned back to him, her expression softer but still guarded. Did you actually want a pastry, or were you just trying to throw money around? Vincent admitted, feeling strangely vulnerable. I wanted coffee. My driver took a wrong turn. Coffee is $3. I can't accept your triple price offer for that either. Vincent found himself smiling despite the rejection. Fair enough. Coffee and one of those chocolate chip cookies. Rosa prepared his order in silence, and Vincent noticed details he usually missed. The calluses on his hands, the faded scar on his forearm, the phone held together with tape because replacing it wasn't a priority. She worked hard for this small cart, harder than most people in his world worked for their corner offices. She handed him the coffee and cookie wrapped in wax paper. $3.50. Vincent gave her a $5 bill. Keep the change. That's 50 cents, not exactly life-changing. Then consider it appreciation for humbling me in public. Rosa's lips twitched toward a smile. That happens often? Never, actually. You're the first. He took a sip of the coffee and nearly groaned. It was perfect, rich and smooth, better than the expensive espresso in his office. The cookie was even better, melting on his tongue with the kind of flavor that came from real butter and quality chocolate. This is incredible, he said honestly. Thank you. My family recipe. Vincent wanted to ask more, to keep her talking, but a group of tourists approached the cart, their cameras around their necks. Rosa's attention shifted naturally, and Vincent understood his moment had passed. He walked back to his car, the cookie half finished, his mind miles away from the meeting he was already late for. Natalie would scold him for the delay, but Vincent couldn't bring himself to care. Something had shifted in that brief exchange, something he couldn't quite name. As his driver pulled into traffic, Vincent looked back at the pastry cart. Rosa was laughing at something a customer said, her whole face lighting up with genuine joy. She hadn't asked his name, hadn't tried to get his number, hadn't treated him like anything special. Vincent Morrison, who could buy buildings with a phone call, who had everything money could purchase, suddenly wanted the one thing it couldn't. He wanted her to look at him the way she looked at her regular customers, with recognition and warmth. He wanted to be worth remembering for reasons that had nothing to do with his bank account. For the first time in years, Vincent felt truly hungry, and it had nothing to do with pastries.
Vincent Morrison returned to the pastry cart the next morning at exactly 7:30. He told himself it was about the coffee, that he had simply discovered a superior product and was being efficient by returning to a reliable source. The lie lasted until he saw Rosa setting up her display, and his heart did something inconvenient in his chest. She noticed him approaching and raised an eyebrow. Wrong turn again? Intentional turn this time, Vincent admitted, joining the short line of early customers. Rosa served the people ahead of him with easy conversation, remembering orders without being told, asking about children and jobs and weekend plans. Vincent realized she had built something rare here, a genuine connection in a city famous for anonymity. By the time he reached the counter, she was already preparing his order. "Coffee and chocolate chip cookie," she said, not quite smiling. "Predictable." Is predictable bad? Depends on the context. In breakfast orders, it's sufficient. Vincent accepted the coffee, their fingers brushing briefly during the exchange. Rosa pulled back quickly, busying herself with rearranging pastries that didn't need rearranging. He paid exact change this time, having stopped at a convenience store specifically to break a $20 bill. "Learning," Rosa observed, counting the coins. "I can be taught." "That remains to be seen." Vincent sipped his coffee, searching for a reason to linger. "How long have you been doing this?" 3 years at this corner, 7 years baking professionally. My family owns a small bakery in Queens. I wanted to expand our reach, bring our recipes to Manhattan. Smart business strategy. It's not about strategy, it's about sharing something we love. She looked at him directly. Not everything is business. Vincent felt the gentle reprimand. In his world, everything was business, every relationship transactional, every conversation potentially profitable. The idea of doing something purely for love seemed almost foreign. "Teach me," he said impulsively. Rosa's hands stilled. "Teach you what?" "How to see things that way, how to care about something beyond profit margins. She studied him for a long moment, and Vincent felt exposed under her gaze. Finally, she shook her head. That's not something you learn in a conversation. That's something you live. Before Vincent could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Rosa!" A man approached the cart, tall and polished, wearing the kind of casual, expensive clothes that signaled old money. His smile was confident, possessive in a way that made Vincent's jaw tighten instinctively. "Gabriel," Rosa said, and her voice went flat. Gabriel Stone barely glanced at Vincent before focusing entirely on Rosa. "I've been trying to call you. I've been busy." "Too busy for 5 minutes?" Gabriel leaned against the cart with practiced ease. "We need to talk about the lease situation." Rosa's expression shifted to something guarded. "There's nothing to discuss. Your permit fees are increasing 30% next month. I heard through connections at City Hall." Gabriel's tone suggested concern, but his eyes held something sharper. "You can't afford that on your current margins." Watched Rosa's knuckles whiten as she gripped the counter edge. This was news to her, unwelcome news delivered by someone who clearly knew it would hurt. "I'll figure it out," Rosa said quietly. "Or you could accept my offer. Let me invest in your business, expand properly. We could open multiple locations, franchise the concept." He reached for her hand, but Rosa pulled away. "We were good together, Rosa, business and personal. We could be again." "We're done, Gabriel. Both kinds of done." "You're being stubborn. Pride won't pay your bills." Vincent had heard enough. She said no. Gabriel turned, really seeing Vincent for the first time. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by calculation. "Vincent Morrison, I didn't realize you frequented street carts." "I frequent quality, wherever I find it." The two men measured each other in silence. Gabriel's smile turned cold. "Interesting. Rosa has a pattern of attracting wealthy men, though she'll tell you she hates what we represent." "Gabriel, leave." Rosa's voice shook with controlled anger. "Think about my offer. You have 2 weeks before the fees hit." Gabriel straightened his jacket. "Pride is expensive, Rosa. Eventually, you'll do the math." He walked away, leaving tension thick in the air. Rosa stood rigid, staring at nothing, her breathing carefully measured. Vincent recognized the look of someone fighting tears through sheer willpower. "How bad is it?" Vincent asked gently. "None of your business." "Maybe not, but I'm asking anyway." Rosa finally looked at him, and Vincent saw exhaustion beneath the strength. 30% increase means an extra $800 monthly. I barely break even now. My brother Derek and I split costs for ingredients, but he has a family to support. I can't ask him for more. "Let me help." "No." The word was immediate and final. "Rosa, I can write a check right now." "And prove Gabriel right? That I'm just another person looking for a wealthy savior?" Rosa's eyes flashed. "I've been down that road. Gabriel promised to support my..."
The bakery smelled like heaven wrapped in warmth. Cinnamon and vanilla mingled with rising dough, chocolate melted somewhere in the back, and underneath it all ran the honest scent of hard work. Vincent stepped into the kitchen and felt immediately out of place among the industrial mixers and flour-dusted surfaces. Derek Martinez looked up from kneading dough, his forearms thick with muscle earned from years of manual labor. He was broader than Vincent, with Rosa's same brown eyes but harder, more protective. His gaze assessed Vincent in 3 seconds flat and found him wanting. "So, you're the suit," Derek said without preamble. "I'm Vincent. I know who you are. Looked you up after Rosa mentioned you. Tech mogul, billion-dollar portfolio, penthouse in Tribeca." Derek returned to his kneading with deliberate force. "Question is, what are you doing in my bakery at 5 in the morning?" Rosa intervened before Vincent could answer. "He's here to learn. Be nice." "I'm always nice, to people who deserve it." Vincent accepted the hostility without defensiveness. If he had a sister, he would probably react the same way to a stranger with unclear intentions. "I understand your concern." "Do you?" Derek shaped the dough with practiced hands. "Because from where I stand, you're a rich guy chasing my sister like she's some kind of project." something different to collect. "Derek," Rosa warned. "No, let him answer." Derek finally looked directly at Vincent. "My sister spent 2 years with Gabriel Stone, watched him promise to support her dreams, then try to buy them out from under her. She doesn't need another wealthy man playing generous until he gets bored." The words were harsh but fair. Vincent met Derek's stare without flinching. "You're right to protect her. If I were you, I would say exactly the same thing. All I can offer is my word that I'm here to learn, not to take over. If I break that promise, you have my permission to throw me out personally." Derek studied him for a long moment, then grunted something that might have been approval. "Rosa, show him how to make the cinnamon rolls. If he's useless, send him home." Rosa led Vincent to a clean workspace where ingredients waited in measured portions. She handed him an apron, and Vincent tied it on, feeling ridiculous and determined in equal measure. "First rule," Rosa said, washing her hands at the industrial sink, "baking requires patience. You can't rush rising dough or force ingredients to cooperate. Everything happens in its own time." "I'm not known for patience." "Then this will be educational," she smiled slightly. "Second rule, precision matters, but so does intuition. Follow the recipe, but trust your senses. Baking is science and art together." Vincent watched as Rosa demonstrated rolling out dough, spreading butter and cinnamon sugar with confident strokes, creating tight spirals that would become perfect rolls. Her hands moved with unconscious grace, years of practice evident in every motion. "Your turn," she said, stepping back. Vincent's first attempt was disaster. The dough tore under too much pressure, the butter clunked unevenly, and his rolls looked like misshapen lumps. Rosa didn't laugh, just gently corrected his grip and showed him again. "Lighter touch," she instructed, her hand briefly covering his to demonstrate pressure. "Let the dough guide you instead of forcing it." They worked in comfortable silence, broken only by Derek's occasional instructions from across the kitchen and the rhythmic sounds of baking. Vincent found himself relaxing into the repetitive motions, the simple satisfaction of creating something with his own hands. "Why do you do this?" he asked as Rosa checked his third attempt and nodded approval. "You could franchise, hire people, expand like Gabriel suggested, make real money." Rosa's hands stilled. "This is real. My grandmother taught my mother these recipes. My mother taught Derek and me. Every pastry that leaves this bakery carries our family history. If I franchise, that gets lost. It becomes product instead of legacy. But you're barely surviving." "I'm living exactly how I choose." Rosa met his eyes. "Money isn't the only measure of success, Vincent. Some things matter more than profit." Vincent thought about his own life, the endless pursuit of more. More money, more success, more everything. When had he last created something just because it brought joy? When had he last measured success by anything except numbers in an account? "Teach me that," he said quietly. "How to value the things money can't measure." Rosa searched his face for insincerity and apparently found none. "It's not a lesson you learn in a day." "Then I'll keep coming back." Something warm flickered in Rosa's expression before she looked away. "Your rolls are burning." Vincent lunged for the oven, pulling out slightly over-browned cinnamon rolls that still smelled incredible. Derek walked over, examined them critically, then broke one open and tasted it. "Not terrible," he admitted grudgingly. "Needs work, but edible." From Rosa Martinez, Vincent suspected that was high praise. The morning passed in flour and focused work. Vincent learned to knead bread, to judge dough readiness by feel, to time batches so everything finished fresh. His hands grew tired, his back ached from standing, and he had never felt more satisfied. At 7 p.m., Rosa prepared to load her cart. Vincent helped carry trays to her van, careful not to jostle the delicate pastries. In the growing daylight, exhaustion showed on Rosa's face, the cost of starting work before dawn. "How do you do this every day?" Vincent asked. "Because it matters. Because people depend on me for their morning routine, their small joys." Rosa secured the last tray. "You can't understand that from a boardroom." "No, you really can't." Rosa turned to face him fully. "Why are you really here, Vincent? And don't say to learn. What do you actually want?" The question deserved honesty. Vincent took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I want to know you, not as a project or a novelty, but as a person. You're the first person in years who has treated me like I'm ordinary.
and I didn't realize how much I needed that until you did it. You're not here